Hi everyone, welcome back to Job One for All. And as I said, we are going to put aside the overriding for now because we need to talk about polymorphism. And before we get there, let's talk about other topics. And the next one will be how we handle constants in Java. So constants are variables that they cannot change. So there are a couple rules because there are variables that are primitives and there are variables that are reference types. So let's get started and with the most simple one, that is primitive types. Since it's a new topic, let's create a new package here. Package J. Well, we can call this final modifier because in Java to have a constant we need to use the modifier called final. Okay, so let's create another package. Let's create a package called domain and let's create a class and let's call the class car. Remember when we were talking about car here in the aesthetic modifier, we are going to use the same thing, the speed limit. So let's copy these three attributes here. So string name and private static double speed limit. Let's create getters and setters for the name only. And let's talk about now the speed limit. So there are some attributes that sometimes you want them to have the same value forever. You don't want the value to change. So this means that that specific attribute is a constant. So after you create after the object is created, it can never change. Now, how can we do that? First, let's remove this static because the word that we are looking for to make a variable a constant is final. When I create a final, and remember that I said that all the instance variables, they have default initialization values, it doesn't work with constants. So it's saying here that you have to initialize this variable explicitly. You have to give it a value, even though you can give 0, but you need to say something to the JVM saying, hey, I know that this is a constant and this is the value that I would like you to assign to this variable. Now, we are now using a constant, and there is one specific convention that we have to follow. Constant classes, they have to have the words all uppercase, and if you have multiple words, they should be separated by underscores. Basically, this should look like this. Now, since I cannot change the value later, usually you will see constants with final and the modifier static. So you can have private static final, private final static, but usually you will see static before final. And since wait a minute, I'm just getting lost here. Don't keep changing from Mac to Windows. Since we cannot change, we can make this guy public. So now we have public static final double speed limit. And how does that behave in a test class? Let's create here a new package, remove the domain and add test, and then out insert Java class. And let's call this class car test 01. Cool. PSVM. Let's create a car. Be careful to import it from the right package. In my case, it was the second one, final modifier. Okay, so the first thing is, since we are working with static attribute, the static attribute should not actually, it can, but it should not be called from the reference variable. So for example, if I try to get speed limit, you will see that IntelliJ is not helping us find that speed limit, even though it would work, but IntelliJ is kind of forcing you to do the right thing, that is calling the static variable from the class name. So now this is public. We can access this variable here, but we cannot reassign. I cannot give a new value to this variable. And you will get an exception and say, oh, you cannot change the variable because it's final. Maybe you can make it not final. So once this is assigned, it can never change again. Now, there are some rules that we have to follow. It's not always that you need to have, let me just give it this, put this inside a salt. So it's not always that you have to have the initialization happening here. Sometimes imagine that you would like to do like one special check that is not possible with simple variables. So another option is using static and giving the speed limit a value here. So the thing is, by the time you are done with loading this class in the JVM, the value will be available to be used. So this is the most important thing to remember, because not always the variable will be static. So what happens if it is just final? It's not a static. So you have some problems. First problem is that the test now cannot be called from the class itself, should be called from the instance car. And now we have to initialize. So the same way it worked with static, we can just start a new initialization block and say, okay, speed limit now is 250. It works. And you can also do with constructor. So in this case, we don't want to get the value as a parameter, but we can assign here. Can I do this? Just put it here? No. Why is that? Because at the time this is executed, we already have the variable initialized. So your option would be to remove that all together. So this is constants in Java. So what you have to remember, usually they will come with static and final. You have to initialize before you actually use it. And the convention is all the words uppercase separated by underscores. So in the next video, we are going to see how it works with reference variables. So I hope you enjoyed. See you in the next video. Bye.